Well, if you've been on the interwebs, you would have seen that there's a lot of creators are basically stating the GoPro is dead. And that's one of these little things here. Now, I'll just hold that up to the screen so you can have a look at it. Let's put it in the focus. There it is. So that's a GoPro. Now, GoPros are so famous that an action camera is actually called a GoPro. So it's a trade name that's being used as an action camera. And they've been quite successful. And the reason is because they're small, they're compact, they're easy to use. You turn them on, they focus on whatever you just point them whatever, and you get a pretty good picture. Now, there has been some issues with them over the years with problems. You have to take a battery up with the battery. They overheat and so forth if they run too long or they cut out. And there's been a number of these issues with GoPros because they're trying to fit quite a powerful package into a very, very small casing. So they've had their issues. And not only GoPro, but other action cameras have also had their issues. But now what we're hearing creators is they're saying, hey, you should ditch this little GoPro, this one here, right? And you should get rid of it. And you should buy something like this, which is a 360 camera. So that's what is going around the internet and telling people to do. So let's roll an intro and let's have a bit of a talk about why I'm not in full agreement with a lot of this, I don't know, you can call it propaganda marketing. I don't know what it's driven by, but people are saying that the GoPro is dead. Now, the first thing when we talk about a GoPro, the GoPro doesn't have the creativeness of a 360. A 360 camera is quite a different camera. It captures all directions, so you can select that in post, and also you can hold it out in front of you and use a selfie stick, and the selfie stick disappears because of the stitching mechanism of using the two cameras and putting it together, and the actual stick disappears. And you can get some really great shots with 360 cameras, and they really look it's like when drones first came out. You go, wow, look at this footage. And it's the same with these 360 cameras. You go, wow, look at this footage. They do some really spectacular stuff, and I actually like them for that usage. But what people are actually saying and propagating to people who are watching or out there saying, hey, dump the GoPro, dump that sort of camera and buy not specifically a 360 camera, but an Insta360 camera, and they're pushing the X3. The one I've got here is a Insta camera, but this is the top, or currently when making this video, this is the top 360 camera that's a handheld device that you can put on a selfie sticks. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this camera because I bought this on the hype and the marketing worked on me. But what I really think about this camera compared to something like this, which is a GoPro, and can this sort of camera really replace the GoPro? So what they're claiming is that you can hold it out in front of you. It has all these advantages. The stick disappears and you can frame it any way you like. It has the stability of the GoPro, and you can replace the GoPro. Now, that is all true, but what they don't tell you is that the 360 cameras are still have limitations, and that's due to the way that they need to make the cameras and the way that you crop in on the sensor. So if this is my sensor here, the picture you're watching, when you take the picture of that side, you'll be cropping in. You cut a little bit of the frame out, so you're reducing your resolution, and also you're making the sensors smaller, so it hasn't captured as much light. And these cameras do suffer from low light performance. So that is one of the negatives. Now, this is my second 360 camera. The one I had before was a GoPro Max. It was a GoPro product. And that camera, I really liked it. I've got a cycling channel as well, and I'll bolt that onto the front of my bike. And it's really great for that application. And the GoPro Max as well also has pretty good sound just straight into the camera. And also this camera here, also when you put the media mod on, has excellent sound. I would even say you could use this as a microphone for capturing sound. With the media mod on, the wind suppression is excellent. It's really, really good. And also on the GoPro Max, It's not as good as this media, but it's pretty good wind suppression. So these sorts of cameras do have some significant applications. Now, when we look at a camera like this, I wouldn't use the sound with it. Now, you can put on all these devices and you can fit a DJI and a little clamp on the side and you can plug it in, which makes the whole unit heavier, and it's not that light. This particular one's not that light as it is. And when you're using these sorts of things, you want to be able to move them on a long selfie stick to really get those great crane shots, and that makes it even heavier still. So I'm not a fan of that. If I'm wanting sound, I'll use a separate recorder, so forth, to get the sound. So that's something that I think is a negative. They're saying, yes, you can put better mics on them, but it's another cost, especially if you buy the DJI one. They're pretty expensive, probably about 2/3 the cost of this camera. And then you've got to buy the bracket and fit it on and all the rest of it. So that makes it significantly more expensive than something like buying a GoPro with a media mod. Now, where I see the biggest difference is this is a GoPro 9. This is not the latest. We've got GoPro 11, and the GoPro 11 is significantly improved over this camera. This particular one here, the GoPro 9, did have some problems, and I must admit I do have some glitches with it. It doesn't stop me from capturing my footage, but I do have some glitches with it. When I charge it up, it turns on. It doesn't just stay off, and it does some silly stuff. And that's a software thing because it never used to do it. It started doing it. But the picture out of these GoPros is actually pretty decent, and it's a lot better than what you get out of these 360 cameras. If you don't have really good light, really bright light, then these cameras are they just don't work very well. The picture out of them is pretty ordinary. They need to have really bright light. You can use them indoors, and I'm going to play a video I made for a charity that was using this camera, and a lot of the indoor shots I had to toss them. They just weren't up to scratch. I just couldn't get the camera to really perform indoors that much. You need to have a lot of light coming through windows and so forth to be able to use these 360 cameras. So the issue I have here is they're propagating the idea that these 360 cameras can replace these action cameras, and I don't think so. And first of all, the picture quality is just not as good. It's nowhere near as good. It's like leagues away, and that's an old GoPro, a Hero 9. The Hero 11 has got a bigger sensor. It's got a much better picture in it, and a lot of people are saying it's a very, very good product. They also a lot more, what do you call it, prone to damage because the lenses stick out. If you can see from the side, you can see the lenses stick out. And if you put them down or drop them or whatever and scratch that lens, unfortunately with 360 cameras, anything on the lens shows up really easily, any droplets of water or scratches or whatever. So then you basically can bugger up your 360 camera. They're a lot more fragile. That's the word I'm looking for, fragile. And you just can't use them. They're not as rugged as using a normal GoPro. And even with my other one, my GoPro Max, which I put on my bike and I put it also on my car and I put it outside, even with bugs and things hitting it, you have to make sure you keep that lens on the front side clean to get the best possible picture. So I actually disagree with a lot of what these people are propagating, and I do feel that it may be driven by a specific company and marketing, and these people are getting these products so they can push them and basically say, hey, look, buy one of these because it's better than one of these, which is their opposition. And as I said, they're specifically talking about Insta to GoPro. Now, GoPro do make the GoPro Max, which is a 360 camera. And I can tell you right now, that camera is really good. And I would actually say it's easier to use. The software is better to use than the Insta software. I don't really like the Insta software. It doesn't seem very intuitive to use. The GoPro Max is far better. I also like the colors out of the GoPro Max. The low light performance is a little bit better on this one, but the GoPro Max is lighter. It's easier to use. I really like that camera. This camera here, it's a lot more expensive. This is probably the most disappointing camera or camera product that I've ever bought. It just doesn't meet the hype. I was expecting much more from this camera. It even it's even quirky to use. If you want to use your histogram, it's not on the screen here. It's only on your phone. So you need to connect your phone. And the reason why I use these type of cameras is because you want to use them quickly. And I find that a real hassle. Also, the shutter speed is not fast enough in a place like Perth, West Australia, where it's really bright. It's still clipping. It still clips the highlights. You can't make it the shutter speed high enough so it won't clip. So it's when you put it on auto or manual, it doesn't matter. You can't get the camera to not clip the highlights. So when you go back to something like this, unless you specifically want that 360 look, a camera like this is still far easier. GoPros, I think if you want to use them for action or you want to use them for vlogging, just walking down the street, they do the job excellent. And I think there is still a place for these type of cameras, and there is still a place for these type of cameras. These cameras here, I think that they still need a lot of work. First of all, they need higher frame rates with better quality picture. The picture needs to be better overall, and they can't really sell them as an action camera, I think, currently, as a replacement for the GoPros. They have significant limitations. Unless you got really good light, even a overcast day where it's not that sunny, they underperform. When you can GoPro, you can still get a reasonable picture out of them. So that's where I'm going to leave it, guys. Bit of a long video about the two types of cameras we have here, but I really think there's still a place for these, and there's still a place for these, and that one's not replacing the other. And I was a bit miffed about how they were making a comparison between these two cameras, because from my experience, they're not for the same type of application. Anyway, leave your comments down below. Have you got a GoPro? Do you like the GoPro? Have you got a 360 camera? What do you think about it? Do you think a 360 camera can replace a GoPro? I don't personally think so, but people may have had other experiences. Well, anyway, guys, that's where I'm going to leave it, and I will see you next vid.